Hello and welcome to GameStack, and by overwhelming demand, we are finally talking about the Sony PlayStation.
Exactly right, Joe. At this point in time, 3DO and Atari have pretty much bitten the dust. Sega and Nintendo are at it again, as the leaders of the console wars. Sony's just about to throw their hand into this thing, so It was at a very exciting time in 1995 to be alive. So, as usual with all console episodes, why don't you break it down the console for us and the specs and all that good stuff?
Let's take a look at the system.
The Sony PlayStation.
The PlayStation was released in Japan in December of 1994 and the rest of the world in 1995. It uses amazing CD-ROM technology as its main form of media storage. Originally designed to be a CD add-on for the Super Nintendo, Nintendo reneged on the deal and Sony decided to go ahead and develop a 32-bit standalone console. The controller features an odd, segmented D-pad as well as shapes used to label the buttons. These aren't random. The creators intended the triangle to represent a viewpoint or direction, the square as a document or a menu, and the X and circle buttons for yes and no for decision making. Eventually, this controller would be replaced with a DualShock analog pad. This one has not one, but two analog pads. The games originally came in long boxes, but quickly migrated to normal jewel cases. The underside of PlayStation CDs are black. Some rumors say that this was used to help against piracy, but no, it's there just to be cool. The PlayStation is a 32-bit system running at 33.8 MHz with 16 million colors and the ability to handle 180,000 texture-mapped and light-sourced polygons per second. Holy crap! Many PlayStations, especially the earlier units, would have problems dissipating the heat, and this could be remedied by turning the console upside down. Overall, the PlayStation saw nearly 2,500 games released, and it was the first console to sell over 100 million units. Anyway, we're going to go into games now, and we're going to cover some of the popular ones that everyone talks about when they talk about the PlayStation. But we're also going to cover some of the less talked about ones because, we want to show them to you. So. You've got the first one?
Yeah, let's get right to it.
Yeah, let's show us what you got, Dave.
Ape Escape was released in 1999 and it was one of the first games to require the DualShock controller. Sony made use of every button and every feature of the DualShock and it all worked really well. So the story goes that this monkey, Spectre, got a hold of a helmet that increased his intelligence to Joe's level, and we all know that Joe is one smart monkey. Spectre used this helmet for evil purposes and imprisoned the scientist who created it and his assistant. Your job is to go through various periods of time to capture all the monkeys so that they can rewrite history, which would make the monkey superior. You start the game having only a baton, but you quickly get a net that you use to capture monkeys. As the game progresses, you get access to many more accessories to help you catch monkeys and traverse each level. Each level has a required amount of monkeys to catch, and when you reach that number, the level ends right there. Besides capturing monkeys, there are gold coins to collect, and I want to explore, so I often just pass up some of the monkeys so that the level won't end. Other than that, this game is very enjoyable. Graphically, it's got problems. Some of the textures aren't that great, and the game is full of jagged lines that are supposed to be straight. This type of warping is pretty common on this system, but it's still really ugly. The music in the game is alright. It has some really strange beats and I'm not sure if I like it or not. After playing the game recently, the levels feel cramped, but that's to be expected. Overall though, it's a great game and a good one to have in your collection.
Yes!
We love talking about Castlevania, so let's take a look at Castlevania Symphony of the Night. In this one, you control Dracula's half-human son Alucard, which everyone remembers from Castlevania 3 on the NES, right? The game starts out with you controlling Richter Belmont and replaying the final battle with Dracula from Dracula X on the PC Engine Super CD. Now you probably think you've beaten the entire game right then and there, just like I did. Wow, what a short game, right? Nope. Richter may have actually won that battle, but he's been missing for several years. Alucard comes running in, but his main goal is dealing with his daddy issues. However, you'll eventually encounter Maria from Dracula X, who is there looking for Richter.
What do you here?
This is the first of the Metroidvania-style Castlevania games that some people love and other people simply hate. Personally, I love it. And this is the best Metroidvania by far. You run around collecting abilities which help you progress, just like you do in Metroid. You also level up with experience points, and the money that falls to the ground can actually be used to buy new stuff in this game.
I'm interested in this.
There's a map which is drawn in as you discover new places, again, just like Metroid. Once you get 100% of the map filled and you think you're done, the castle flips upside down and you find out that you're only halfway through. Now you're running around the same levels, but upside down with new enemies and music. You need to explore just a little over 200% to fully complete the game. The graphics are great with lots of returning enemies and tons of new ones as well. I like how these witches turn into cats when you defeat them. The music by Michiru Yamane is amazing, and this soundtrack stands on its own very well. It really helps the dreary, lonely mood that this game has. If you play only one Metroidvania-style Castlevania game, make sure it's this one and this particular version.
Oddworld: Abe's Odyssey was released in 1997, and I was really looking forward to this game. I was amazed at the visuals at the time, and the CG cutscenes really blew me away. As you can see, the gameplay is very similar to games such as Prince of Persia, Flashback, Nosferatu, and the like. You're Abe, who works at the meat processing plant. You overhear at a board meeting that the animals the company uses for its product is almost extinct, so another meat source must be found. Sadly, they decide to use your species, the Mudokons. So throughout the game, it's your job to save the Mudokons and to help them escape with you instead of being turned into a tasty snack. The game's CG cutscenes really help fill out the story and really keep your attention. I like this style of game from time to time where it's more trial and error finding out what you need to do to advance the game. Of course, you have as many lives as you need, so go ahead and kill yourself over and over until you find the exit. Abe carries no weapons, and he has to use his chant ability to help him dispose of some enemies. It's very satisfying as when you chant, you take control over some of the creatures in here. Once you use the enemy to kill other guards and whatnot, you just make them commit suicide. It feels great. The game also has a really good sense of humor, like this part where you chant and the moths form words. Like this one, watch out for that bat? What bat? Ah! Definitely a must-have for the system. This game does have a sequel, Abe's Exodus, and it's just as fun, if not more fun, than the first game. There's also an Xbox sequel that was okay.
Point Blank by Namco is a really fun light gun game. The game uses a Namco gun con which attaches to the composite video cable for improved accuracy. So, if you want to play this game in S-Video or better, you can only play it on the original model PlayStation. You see, unless you mod your system, the original model PlayStation is the only unit that'll let you use two different video cables at the same time. Or I guess you could just get one of these combo cables. Anyway, here it is in full S-Video glory. Basically, it's full of really short minigames with different objectives. You lose a life if you fail an objective or if you accidentally shoot a bomb. The games can range from protecting one of the characters from piranhas, to shooting bees, to shooting a bunch of skeletons, or a whole bunch of different stuff. There's a lot of different minigames here, and everything kind of has a WarioWare vibe to it long before WarioWare ever came out. That's certainly not a bad thing. There's even a strange quest mode where it plays kind of like an RPG with towns to visit and battles to fight. The stages that you'd normally play in the arcade mode are actually the battles in this mode. But you earn money and level up and all of that stuff. Unfortunately, there's a lot of loading in this mode. This is a great game to play with friends as well.
Alundra was released in 1997, and I'm having a hard time deciding if this is an action-adventure game or an action role-playing game. You don't level up your character like a normal RPG, but you do collect and upgrade your equipment. But who cares really, as this is one of the PlayStation's finest games. The game is played using a top-down perspective. It plays very much like any action RPG or adventure game of that time. As is the usual, you talk to villagers and then go clear a dungeon and then come back and talk to more villagers and then go to another dungeon. In between dungeons, you help people of the village by entering their dreams and ridding them of their nightmares. The game was developed by Matrix, and not many people know them by that name. Matrix was made up by several employees of Climax. You know, the guys who made Landstalker on the Genesis, so you know that this game is quality. Luckily, Working Designs cared enough to bring the game to the US. If you know anything about Working Designs, it's that they do a really good job on their packaging. Firstly, the game comes with a foil cover, which is okay, I guess, but I'm talking about the instruction manual. I mean, look at this, it's made of the highest quality paper. It's loaded with artwork and really vibrant colors. The text in the game also got a wonderful translation with the usual working design sense of humor. Like old Boner here. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Should it be Boner or is it Bonaire? Bonaire? I mean, if it is Boner, I mean, look at this dialogue. The thing I like about this game the most is the dungeons. All of them are really puzzle heavy and you'll be solving multiple puzzles in every dungeon. The puzzles are all very clever and some of them are downright sadistic and will turn your mind into mush trying to figure them out. This game is definitely pleasing to my eyes and my ears. It has some nicely drawn graphics and the music is really good with some great melodies. If you own a PlayStation, you really need to own this game.
Ghost in the Shell is a game that I never hear anyone talk about. I guess it's based on either the movie or the TV show, I have no idea, one of the two. I saw the movie once as a teenager and I really don't remember it very well. There are a few cutscenes with the anime in them and they look pretty good. Anyway, you roam around fairly big levels in this ladybug type contraption which can crawl on walls and shoot things. You have objectives to accomplish and then you fight a boss. This is a really good game and yeah, I'm still surprised that I haven't heard anyone ever talk about this one. The one problem with this game is that you only have one life, and if you die on a boss fight, you have to redo the entire mission again. In fact, I got tired of trying to beat the level 2 boss and just turned it off and played some other games. But I kept thinking about it. I wanted to play again. I simply had to try again. And I did, and I beat that bastard. He was actually pretty easy. You really do need to memorize the level layouts perfectly in order to beat things, especially the levels that have a timer. Like this one where there are bombs all over the place that you need to destroy, and you need to do it as fast as you can. The pace of the game is really frenetic, and the great driving music really only adds to that. You know why this game is so good? Because it was developed by Exact, makers of Jumping Flash and some of the more awesome X68000 games. Do yourself a big favor and check this game out. It makes you keep coming back for more, and that's always the sign of a good game.
Warhawk was a launch game for the PlayStation back in 1995. I remember being in total awe of everything this game offered. It had live-action cutscenes, a great CD soundtrack, and a large 3D world to fly around in. Now granted, the live-action cutscenes were always super cheesy, and of course the actors went to the GameSack School of Acting.
Intelligence can't find anything on this Creel guy.
But still, they were fun to watch and added to the overall enjoyment. In the game itself, you take control of the Warhawk plane, which is one of the last hopes of destroying Creel, who's an insane megalomaniac. The Warhawk controls really well. It takes a bit to get used to the controls, but once you do, you'll be flying like a pro. Back in 1995, I had a lot of fun with this game, and I think it was because it was a new game on a new system, and I was really excited about this. I mean, really, a new competitor had just entered the Nintendo vs. Sega battle, and this game was making a huge impact. I knew right then and there that the PlayStation was going to be a great system. Playing this game for this review, I really didn't feel much of the excitement that I used to have. The game is still fun, and I enjoy the cutscenes and the music, but it just doesn't fascinate me like it used to. If you don't own it, then I would say it's worth a try because it's a solid game. You can easily get this game for under $5, and it's worth it for that, but I wouldn't pay too much more.
There's a lot of fighting games on the PlayStation, but Tobal #1 is one that rarely gets mentioned. This one is made by Square and Dream Factory. It's a 3D fighter without any texture mapping at all. Say what you will, but I kinda like how it looks. It's very clean, high resolution, and fast. It doesn't have any of that blocky, warped, or grainy stigma that a lot of PlayStation games do. The lack of textures also speeds up the loading. The music is generally really good as well. As for the game itself, it's not bad at all. You can choose from 8 different characters. You have a high, medium, and low attack as well as a jump and a guard. This game isn't super complex, but it is fun and some of the characters are pretty goofy. If you get tired of the tournament mode, you can try out quest mode. Here you'll run around caverns collecting blue gems while having multiple battles and searching for items or accomplishing various other tasks. The control here really sucks, but it definitely adds some longevity to the game. Tobal 2, not Tobal number 2, just 2, was released only in Japan. This one adds some new fighters as well as a bit of texture mapping to the floor and some parts of the background. Still, there's none of that typical warping, and everything is still high-res and at 60 frames per second. And they updated the quest mode with towns to roam and NPCs to talk to. I didn't play this for very long since it's in Japanese, but I hear there's an English translation floating around out there. The quest controls still suck though. So are these the best 3D fighters ever? No, but they are fun and they are often overlooked.
Strider 2 was released on the PlayStation in 2000. This is a port of the arcade game from 1999. This is the true sequel to the original Strider, and not that abomination from US Gold called Strider Returns. This is a solid sequel, but could have been so much better if it didn't have some flaws. I'm not talking about control, because the control is perfectly fine. Strider controls very much like the original, and even has a few new moves. As you can see, Capcom made a hybrid style game here. They have 2D hand-drawn sprites with Strider and a lot of enemies. Then they chose to have 3D backgrounds and a lot of 3D machine-type enemies. Everything interacts really well with each other, but the models don't seem to fit perfectly. It's a small but noticeable nitpick. Also, the graphics seem to have a very jagged feel to them. Everything just seems really rough around the edges. Personally, I would have been happy with a completely new 2D game, but I'll take this one as it's certainly better than nothing. My second nitpick is that the game loads a lot. It seems like just when you're getting into some great action, the game loads and you feel like saying, damn, things were just getting good. The game is short, with only 5 stages and unlimited continues. When you do continue, you start right where you died, which makes the game super easy. And you know what? I'm fine with this. I think we need more games that can be beaten quickly just so we can have something to play when we're short on time. The music in this game is great. It has a lot of really nice tracks in here that go well with the action. All in all, this is a good game and a great addition to your library. The game comes on 2 discs. The first disc is Strider 2, and the second disc is a port of the original arcade. The company that stamped the discs, they screwed up and put the arcade version on Strider 2 disc and the Strider 2 on their arcade disc. Dumbasses.
Let's talk about the Ridge Racer series. The first game here was a launch title for the system. It lets you play a bonus stage from Galaxian as it loads, and that's pretty cool. The entire game loads into the system RAM except for the music, so after the initial load, it never has to load again. To be honest, I've never really been very good at this game. I just can't get the hang of the drifting mechanics. The graphics are decent for the time, and the music is pretty much awful in my opinion. You have an overly enthusiastic announcer which adds to the fun. Overall, not a horrible game, but I like Daytona a lot more.
Okay, the final lap. Hang in there.
Ridge Racer Revolution is pretty much more of the same. The tracks are slightly different and it's bright and pretty, but other than that, it's pretty much the same game. Oh, and they added a rear view mirror for your convenience. You get to play Galaga 88 as the game loads this time, so that part's better. It's a decent game and better than the first, but certainly not something I'd advise paying full price for if you already own the first one. Rage Racer was the first game in the series that I truly had a great time with. This one seemed to have a bit more variety and even let you design your own graphic logo on the cards. Unfortunately, the graphics are pretty dark and grainy, and the music is your standard Ridge Racer stuff. You get a female announcer this time though. And the best one of the bunch is Ridge Racer Type 4. This one has actual different tracks instead of just simple extensions, and it also features silky smooth analog control. You're on a racing team this time around and they love to yell at you. Even when you finish in first place, they yell at you. Oh well. The music is actually really good this time around and not the typical spazzy stuff that was in the previous games. The graphics are definitely a step up from the previous games. It even comes with the bonus disc that has a turbo version of the first Ridge Racer. This runs at twice the frame rate and resolution of the original game, though there's only one other car on the track besides you now. Still, you know, it's a really cool bonus. This here is really the only Ridge Racer game you even need to have on the system.
Alright, well there's 10 games for you so far, And as you probably know, we've forgotten well over 1,000 of them. So
Yes.
we really should get going, I think.
Yeah. I'm done with the episode. How about you?
Oh my God! Well,
maybe we should cover some more.
Yeah,
Okay.
let's cover a few more.
But
maybe
let's
another
make the reviews a little bit shorter and
bite-sized.
just a little bit. But I've got the first game this
Yeah.
time, and well, let's look at a hell of a lot more games. Herc's Adventures from LucasArts isn't a PlayStation exclusive, but it's still a really cool game. Hades is taking over the land, and now it's up to you to stop him. You run around bashing things with your club or using other weapons and items in order to help you proceed. The game has a great sense of humor. The graphics are simple, but they look good, and there's a lot of animated cartoons around. However, certain enemies just take way too many hits. For example, these skeletons half submerged in the mud almost never seem to die. But other than that, this game is super fun, highly recommended.
Parappa the Rapper is a rhythm game that was released in 1997. You play as Parappa, who raps his way through 6 stages. You don't actually rap, but you do need to have a good sense of timing, as you must push buttons to the beat of the music track that's playing. You know, I never thought I'd like a rhythm game like this, but Parappa proved me wrong, and this is actually a very fun and addictive game. I've got to say, even the music is very enjoyable and very catchy. Everything is drawn a little wacky, but I do like the paper-thin characters. A great game for any PlayStation collection.
I'm glad you know which way to go, but it ain't gonna stop me. Here we go. Check and turn the signals to the right.
Check and turn the signals to the right.
Now turn to the right.
Now turn to the left.
Let's take a quick look at Xevious 3D/G+. What a great name. Anyway, it has the original Xevious games on it, and I've really never enjoyed those at all. There's also an arranged version, which is a little better and slightly more entertaining to play. But the main draw with this version is the 3D/G+ remake. What all that means, I have no idea. The 3D part obviously means polygons. I mean, hell, you can even turn corners now. Well, I mean, the game does it for you. There's even new weapons. This mode is a lot more fun to play than any other version of Xevious. Granted, I don't really care for the inverted view, but it's still fairly fun. The music is great, and the graphics are okay. If you're a Xevious fan, you'll definitely enjoy it.
Einhander is a dark and gritty shooter by Squaresoft, released in 1997. For a company that mainly makes RPGs, these guys did a pretty good job with this shooter. You can choose from 3 available ships, each with a standard machine gun. Killing certain enemies lets you take their weapons and use them as a secondary weapon in addition to your machine gun. With solid shooting action, large boss fights, and a soundtrack that'll knock your socks off, Einhander is a great game for those who like shooters.
The PlayStation also had the very first Metal Gear Solid game. It's so good that I played through it 2 times back to back when I first got it. You star as Solid Snake on a mission to prevent the terrorists from using their nukes. Stealth plays a huge part in this game, and it's generally best to go about your business unseen. There's a lot of conversations via the radio, and some of these are very, very long. Still, it's one of the best games of the 32-bit generation for sure.
Here's Crash Bandicoot, and it was released in 1996. Crash was Sony's official mascot for a while. This is the first game in the series, and in my opinion, is one of the best. This was a very fresh and unique game at the time. The atmosphere and the music are all great, and the game is still very playable today. If you haven't played the original Crash game, you really should, as it's superb. In fact, all 4 titles on the PlayStation, including Crash Team Racing, are quality titles. Unfortunately, the series did go downhill after that and really gave Crash a bad name.
The Adventures of Lomax is a great little 2D game by Psygnosis based on their Lemmings franchise. You're Lomax, and you're out to rescue the other Lemmings trapped inside bad guys, similar to how early Sonic games work. Once you kill them, the Lemming is free and off he goes. It's a fast-paced game and you've got to have quick reactions if you want to stay alive. It plays kind of like a hectic Flink on the Genesis and Sega CD if you've ever played that. The graphics are super vibrant and really show off what the PlayStation can do in 2D. The music's pretty damn good too.
MotorTune Grand Prix was released in 1996. The developers of this fun little racing game went on to form Polyphony Digital. As we all know, they created the Gran Turismo series, which I personally didn't care for, but a lot of people really like that stuff. This game plays more like a Mario Kart game with very cartoonish cars, characters, and tracks. Even the weapons that you pick up to use against your enemies bear a resemblance to Mario Kart. With good controls and good music, this one really is a must-have.
Dynamite!
We should definitely mention Final Fantasy VII. While I'm not a tremendously big fan of the game, nor most RPGs, there's no denying the impact this one had. In fact, for a great many people, it was their very first RPG that they ever played, and as a result is still their favorite. I remember people new to gaming telling me how awesome it was and how far they were getting long after I had gotten bored with it. And yes, I did get bored. I never bothered playing past the part where Cloud dresses up as a girl. But I gotta say that the music is awesome and basically PlayStation chiptunes for lack of a better term. The pre-rendered backgrounds often transition to and from full motion video scenes, and it's totally seamless. This really isn't my style of game, but like I say, I can't deny its impact and its amazing music.
R-Type Delta was released in 1999. It's the fourth game in the R-Type series. It's also the first R-Type game to be rendered with polygons. It's a fun game that's worthy of the R-Type branding. You can pick from 3 different ships and I found each of them fun to play. The game is actually aged very well and it still looks good to this day, and of course it's still very playable. The music is also really enjoyable, so turn the music up and turn the sound effects way down for even more enjoyment.
Spyro the Dragon is one of them we could have probably included in our failed mascots episode. Well, technically I still could since the episode's not even out yet as I record this, but I digress. You play as Spyro and you attack enemies with a charge attack, or you can use your fire breath. You also collect a lot of jewels. You're trying to free all of the older dragons who have been turned into stone by the bad guy simply because he couldn't take an insult.
Ugly? That does it!
Spyro controls well for the most part, but I really don't like the camera at all. For example, why am I running at the screen? The graphics are pretty good and the music is upbeat, so I can see how this game has a lot of fans. I haven't played the sequels, but I imagine at least some of them are even better. He's a part of that whole Skylanders thing now, so I guess he's not really failed or forgotten.
Klonoa was released in 1998 to below average sales here in the US. It's gained a cult following over the years as people realize what a great game this actually is. The levels are all 2.5D and look fairly nice with bright colors, great atmosphere, and really good level design. Klonoa can grab a hold of his enemies and use them to get to higher areas or just to throw them at other enemies. He also has a flutter jump reminiscent of Yoshi and is very useful throughout the game. And to top things off, Klonoa has a great upbeat soundtrack that I really enjoy. A great game if you can get your hands on it.
Gradius Gaiden from Konami was never released in the US in its time. As you'd expect, it plays pretty much like every other Gradius game, but this time you can pick from 4 different ships, each with their own different set of weapons. You fly around picking up icons and you can determine the order you power yourself up, or you can select semi-auto and let the computer do it for you. Like typical Gradius games, you get set back and lose all of your weapons when you die. This is where I usually just reset the game and just start from the beginning. The graphics are pretty damn good, though kinda dark, and the music is outstanding. I've been listening to this music for over 15 years and it's still amazing. It did come out for the PSP in the US in the Gradius collection.
Disruptor by Insomniac Games was released in 1996. This first-person shooter is pretty fun for a Doom clone. It's pretty typical for the genre, but it does add a nice little twist in the form of psionics. Psionics are kind of a special ability, like shock, drain, and healing that adds a little depth to the gameplay. The game controls very well, and everything is fairly smooth. My only real complaint is the lack of being able to look up or down to see more of your environment. There's some decent looking FMV cutscenes which help piece the story together. The acting isn't great, but it's not the worst I've ever seen. This is a fun exclusive for the PlayStation.
Time Crisis is another light gun game by Namco. You play as Richard Miller, a low polygon badass who's here to shoot up bad guys and rescue the president's daughter. It plays kind of like Sega's Virtua Cop, except that you're always hiding behind things. You press and hold a button on the gun to show yourself and fire. Let go of the button and you go back into hiding. There's tons of low count polygons here and the areas are really short. It's not a bad game at all, but I do kind of prefer Virtua Cop.
Action!
Blasto was a heavily marketed game back in 1998. It featured the voice talent of the late Phil Hartman, and sadly, that was the best part of the game.
Let me see if I can help you there, little lady.
The game is a third-person action platformer that controls fairly clunky. As you can see, the draw distance in this game is horrible. Every level consists of skinny walkways and small platforms to jump on. Lots of bland graphics and not much variety in the enemies makes this game kind of a dud.
Ha ha! Oh mama!
Silent Hill is a super creepy game by Konami. You play as Harry and you just had a car crash, but you can't find your daughter anywhere. She must be here in Silent Hill, so you set off to look for her while battling creepy undead things. Or maybe they're not undead, that's just their natural monstrous form, who knows? There's so much fog in this game that you might be tempted to mistake it for an N64 game, but the graininess will be your clue that you're actually running this on a PlayStation. Still, I bet the Nintendo 64 is super jealous of the amount of fog here. The voice acting is really stilted, but you know what? That really only adds to the creepy vibe.
I don't know what happened. I'd like to find out myself.
The controls take a bit of getting used to, but once you do, they're definitely manageable. So start searching for clues to find out where your daughter might be and hopefully make it out of the town alive. This is a great game.
Isn't this Cheryl's sketchbook? She's at the school.
Here's Vandal Hearts, which came out in 1997. This is a turn-based strategy RPG. Yes, I know all about Final Fantasy Tactics, but I actually had more fun playing this game. Now graphically, the game isn't all that great, but the game more than makes up for it with the amount of fun that it offers. It has a great story, some good music, and it's not overly diluted with jobs and magic systems. Konami keeps it simple with an easy interface between battles, talking to townspeople, and visiting shops. This is a great game that every fan of the genre should try.
And there you go, that was a Sony PlayStation for you. We've covered about, I think, maybe 40 games all together.
Yeah, something like that. We've covered quite a few.
And, you know, I'm sorry we didn't cover every single one of them, but we will in a future episode. Not necessarily dedicated to the PlayStation, but we'll get around to the other games.
Yeah, well, real quickly, what did you think about the Sony PlayStation?
I really liked it. I was into the Saturn a lot more at the time.
Not a surprise.
Yeah, but you know, there's no denying that the games on there are great. I was really happy to find games like Ghost in the Shell, which is amazing, and you know, other great games on there as well that I've had since the PlayStation launch. What did you think?
I've always been a fan of the PlayStation since its launch. As with you.
Yeah, you remember when we got Total Eclipse Turbo before the system even came out?
So we just got to stare at the box for a week or whatever. It was good stuff. So.
It wasn't a very good game.
But, you know, I like the system overall. I, of course, It was plagued with problems, you had to turn your system upside down to play games sometimes.
Yeah.
But, I've had 3 PlayStations in my lifetime, so.
Wow, I've had 1.
Yeah.
And but it's still going. It recorded at least half of the games in this episode. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for watching GameSack.